Welcome to Unshrinkable, the podcast with a very catchy jingle and where we meet with some really inspiring women doing important work in the world. Get ready for powerful stories and practical tools to support you on your healing journey. I am your host, Emily Katz, and now let's dive into the episode with our next beautiful guest expert. Hello, everybody. I am thrilled to introduce the incredible Nikki Foreman. Nikki is the founder of Aruna Yoga, a transformative practice that integrates various yoga lineages, meditation, and healing modalities to promote self-discovery and emotional release. With certifications in multiple yoga disciplines, including Ashtanga Vinyasa, Hatha Yoga, Yin Yoga, and Kundalini Yoga, Nikki brings a wealth of experience to her teachings. Clients who have worked with Nikki often express profound gratitude for the transformative experiences they've had. They describe Aruna Yoga as a liberating practice that guides individuals to their true selves, offering freedom and peace. Many have noted significant personal growth, shedding old patterns and embracing their magnificent selves under Nikki's guidance. Her unique approach combines the science of anatomy with the art of fluidity, making yoga a holistic practice that flows naturally and intuitively. I cannot wait for Nikki to share her insights on yoga and specifically her modality, Aruna Yoga, revealing the incredible benefits and life-changing potential of embracing this holistic practice. So let's dig in. Nikki, hi.
Hi, Emily.
Hello.
Hello, great to be with you today.
Yeah, I'm so honored to have you. Please, can you now introduce yourself and specifically how you got here doing what you do?
Well, it's quite a journey. I began as a lawyer, so I've come 180 degrees from where I began in pretty much pre, mid, and post-apartheid South Africa. So it was very, very exciting time. And I landed up in Europe for love as the motivating reason. Love is the most noble of all reasons to leave Cape Town and go live in a really cold place. And when I was living in Belgium, this was when I first connected with yoga. And it was at a time for me that I was in a depression. My brother had just passed away and it had been a tragic time. And I was medicated for depression and anxiety. And nothing had really helped. I wasn't able to shift that darkness, that heaviness that was lying, weighing me down. And when I started yoga, it really just transformed everything for me. I discovered directly through my own experience this wild, transformational practice that is so accessible. And from that, my legal career, which became an academic career, I was a lecturer in the meantime, became pursuing yoga in every shape and form that I could. And it was and remains just this lifelong journey. I'm so passionate about it that for me to be here is just an absolute joy, because the more people that know how easily accessible their own body is to effect healing, to liberate themselves, to connect them to their own truth, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And because of that, and because of my story of developing Aruna Yoga, I'm happy to create today teachers. That's one of the things that I do. Making more teachers so the more light is shining for people to know what is available.
I love that. I love hearing people's journeys, like their stories of how they got to what they're doing today. And sorry for your loss, of course. And I wanted to ask you, how did you then find yoga? Because you said like once you started yoga, but how did you find it?
Well, it's kind of a strange thing. It was like an inner calling. It wasn't something concrete. I was living in Belgium. This was around 25, 30 years ago, and there was no yoga. Nothing existed there. This call, it came from inside. That was this like knowing. And I was like, I have to try this. And there was one teacher in Belgium. She was this incredible woman. She would sit at the bed, like at the foot of her bed. Her entire yoga shala, a yoga shala is like the yoga studio, was really her studio home. Enough space for one yoga mat. And I would sit at her feet, and she taught me. First we started one class a week, became 2 classes a week, 1 hour became an hour and a half, became 3 times a week. And the veracity and the voraciousness with which I approached it was like speed and hunger that infused a passion that is really like a burning fire that still remains today. I went from teacher to teacher, and there were none in Belgium. So Diana, my teacher at the time, was the only one. I started traveling and trying to meet as many gurus as I could get access to. And I went straight for the top. I was going for like really the high level guys. Unfortunately, I can't say any women were involved at that time, but I went from teacher to teacher and I studied with masters. I went to India, to Venice, to South Africa, to New Mexico. I just spent like the next 10 years seeking and seeking and seeking through different practices. I tried them all on. So the first thing that I got into was the Hatha practice, which is much softer. Hatha yoga is a softer approach to yoga. And I'll talk in a moment about what yoga is. But just to delineate, I started with the softer practices. Then I got hooked into the dynamic practices. And I remember feeling like it was the Hatha was my husband that I was like completely committed to. And the dynamic practices like Ashtanga and Vinyasa, which was so wild, was this like illicit love affair. I was like so into it, and I just I couldn't stop myself from this deep, deep, passionate relationship. And then I tried different systems. So Ashtanga and Vinyasa, I studied and spent a lot of time in Germany in those days because there was quite a lot of teachings in Germany, which was quite interesting. The yoga community was quite established, some in Holland. And I gathered this information, and I went from place to place and teacher to teacher. And then it was about 15 years ago, to the practice of Kundalini yoga. And I don't know if you've ever done Kundalini yoga, but it's a totally different trip to the Hatha and the Vinyasa and the soft and the dynamic. It's very energy based. So you use your breath a lot. You stay in practices that are quite demanding. Like you can stay in some of the meditations anywhere from 3 minutes to 31 minutes to 60 minutes to 2.5 hours of staying in a specific practice. It might mean your arms are up like this. And it's so powerful and so transformational when you conduct the fluidity of the breath in connection to the body, in connection to the focal points that you give your mind, that you realize these incredible states of elevation. Today, I can call them transcendent states. Back then, I just said, hey, I'm getting high on yoga. And it really was getting high, you know? And it was just mind-blowing. So Kundalini sucked me into the vortex. And for the next 10 years, I was like a hardcore, you know, I did teach my other classes, but I was teaching strict Kundalini yoga for a long time. And then I started to notice that it was not appropriate for a lot of bodies and a lot of people. And one big area of my work right from the beginning, from the minute I started teaching yoga, was working around healing, and specifically for people with cancer and autoimmune disease. So every time I had a modality, a different practice, I would bring it in and use that to help my clients. But this Kundalini was like really for somebody with cancer, never mind they couldn't keep their arms up for 2.5 hours. They weren't going to keep it up for even a minute. And even doing a dynamic breath is not possible. So I said, you know what? No, I've reached the ceiling with Kundalini. And my teacher at the time, who is the doyenne of Kundalini yoga, her name is Gurmukh, she said to me, Nikki, go and make your own baby, create your own, you know, write your own book, write your own training. And I kind of broke the shackles of the various constructs, and this process unfolded that I can only describe that I became like a divine amanuensis. I don't know if you know this word. I love this word. It's a word that means the divine scribe. Like
channel.
A channel. I learned this word when I was in uni reading Fear of Flying by Erica Jong. Have you ever read that book? It's a must for any woman. It's from the 60s. It was one of the first feminist books that were written. And this word stuck for me, the amanuensis. And that's what I became, this direct channel where I was not looking for gurus outside of myself, but realizing that which I was seeking was actually here all along. And so the search dissolved. It happened in a very dramatic way. It was quite a story. I was in India on a mountaintop and had a moment of Satori where I literally lost consciousness for 7 hours and experienced Kundalini awakening. And it was all spontaneous. It was the act of walking up the mountain was the catalyst, which led me to realize that the true expression of divinity for me was not in the different forms that yoga or my religion had taught me, but was actually expressed as nature. And that nature was my way to connect to what was holy, because after that, the name Aruna came, the teaching systematically concretized into what is now the book and the essential curriculum of a teacher training and personal development program. And the construct of what it is the most fluid, creative, evolving thing. So you use the word in your opening, you use the word fluidity about describing yoga. And that essentially is the essence, because the fluidity, the ever-changingness of everything needs to be directly expressed and realized through our body. And if it doesn't, if it's going through the mind, there's limitation. This is our vessel. It has to go through the body, and the body is the expression of that fluidity. And so Aruna is really, it's gone from form to formless to a fluid, creative, ever-changing expression of creativity as expressed through the body. And I can go to the question of what actually is yoga, because I'm saying a whole lot of stuff, but what does it mean?
No, I wanted to say this, I want to dive into the Aruna now and the fluidity and all of that, and even how to translate it for people who are less into yoga and spirituality and the woo world and everything. So let's start with yoga and then go back into the Aruna, because this is fascinating. And I have so many questions now with your whole like mountain climb and oh man. Sounds incredible. Okay. But
it's quite
yoga.
a story, and the story's kind of touched on in my book, but
okay.
We'll come. I'll come back to that if we got it to, you know.
So what's your book called? Because we all need to get this book now.
Aruna Yoga. It's on Amazon.
Aruna Yoga. Okay.
Aruna Yoga Training Manual by Nikki Foreman. So it's available there, and I am busy finishing my next book called The Fluidity of Form. So it's pretty much the bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
And what is yoga? Yoga itself. Let me start with what yoga isn't, because there's such misconceptions about what it is. Yoga is not contortion. Yoga is not goal attainment. Yoga is not realizing something other than what is right here, accessible and available right now, both in terms of your body's ability as well as your emotional state. So I start with the basic premise of, okay, what is the word? The word is it derives from the Sanskrit yuj, which means to yoke together. So the word itself means union. It's got nothing to do with physicality. I work with people, and I have worked with people who have zero physical ability. One of my clients had ALS and was not even able to open his eyes. He actually had to have his nurse hold his eyes open while I guided him through a visualization of a practice. And when he opened his eyes through his computer, he was able to say, oh my God, that was the most profound experience. You don't need a body, and you don't need to be able, capable, flexible. God, do I hear that all the time? I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible. It's got nothing to do with that. Yoga is connection. It means union. Union with body, mind, union with heart, soul, union with each other, union with nature and your environment. So a yogi or a yogini, which is the feminine version of yogi, is simply, and for me, I will put down my definition of yoga is awareness. It's nothing, needs nothing more than that in principle. And the essential premise, and this is the very heart of Aruna, is to understand that who you are, at essence, the real truth of who you are, when you strip away the constructs and identities, is completely whole. Who you are is perfect. It's healed. Your body might be riddled with some disease, and yet you've got to realize, and I've seen this, who you are is completely, you're already there. So you don't have to get there or get better or show up to class, The moment you switch on the light of awareness, you're there. And that's the simple thing of what is yoga.
I love that. I have to just say that I'm not a yogini, but I have been practicing yoga myself for 9 years daily with breaks when I had babies and all very, very heavily pregnant and just could, Um, but I do want to mention that I remember when I was first getting into it, I found a yoga teacher called Adrienne Louise. She's very popular online. And she's always about find what feels good. She's like anti-yoga robots. And she's very into just find your edge, like what feels comfortable. Don't push too hard. It's not about the pain or anything like that, which I really, really connected with. But I remember that in my experience myself with yoga is being so fascinated, I think, mind blown by suddenly realizing, like connecting to muscles and to being more aware of just my body and in different positions. It's just the small little tweaks or the little shift. She would say, for example, roll your hips under and then this, and then do that, and then do that. And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like I suddenly feel muscles that I wasn't even aware of. And it is the small, like little nuance, kind of subtle tweaks. And you're like, oh, this is what it's about then. When you're actually focusing then on all the things and then breathing in it, and you're like, oh, wow. And just side note, I got sober a month or two after I took up yoga, after
Oh, well.
15 years of alcoholism. And I have a sneaky suspicion
Had
my
something to do with it.
sobriety had something to do with finding yoga. I always say, people say they find Jesus. I'm like, I found yoga.
Yeah. Well,
So, go on.
in my thing, it's finding yourself in my approach and the approach of Aruna, because the self is the anchor and the self is the rudder and the self is kind of the light. It's like everything just comes down to that. The body is such an interesting thing, it's so fascinating to me because I was a ballet dancer, so I did have a lot of body related relationship, but not very healthily. It was so much about rigidity and pushing and attainment
I was a
and
gymnast. It was
oh
all
yeah.
about flexibility.
And in fact it's like it it was such a revelation for me to come to yoga, because yoga was this physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual all combined into one thing that actually precluded the need to do anything outside of walking, swimming, what I find on my other nature-related exercises. That's changed a little now that I'm, in my 50s and moving into a different direction.
Can't believe you're in your 50s.
So it's like I'm now
This is
putting
what yoga does to you, people.
I'll say thank you with grace, but it really is. It is a practice for longevity, and it is a practice for healing. And it doesn't really matter how you do it. Like if it's how you describe, where you just get into the body, or if it's like something that just helps you mentally, or something that connects you spiritually. Honestly, that relationship is very fluid. It's going to
It
change.
very connected me to myself.
Yeah.
Really. So I remember I was also a smoker.
Mm,
And I remember just the breathing, and
yeah.
I could feel I couldn't inflate my lungs fully, and it really bothered me.
Yeah.
And I think I took up yoga at the beginning of 2016. By the end of the year, I quit smoking as well. So I
Yeah.
quit drinking, then I quit smoking, and I really felt that it connected me to myself. And by the way, side note, I tried yoga when I was 20, 21, and I did
Yeah.
not vibe with it. I was like, oh, this is too slow. It's boring. I couldn't, I think I wasn't ready to connect to me,
Yeah.
right? To myself in a way. I don't know, but that I just felt like it.
It's a little bit, it might be that, and I'm sure that that definitely plays a role, but it's also sometimes the practice that you land up the first time is going to determine how your relationship or experience is. And unfortunately, we don't necessarily give second chances. Like we make
Yeah.
those judgments and we say, oh, this is good or this is not. And I watched it because I taught so many different types of yoga. I watched how people want what they want, and they are not willing to really be open to just experience something completely with open curiosity,
Yeah.
free of judgment. And when you can do that, in fact, not just in a yoga class, I mean, I'd certainly recommend it in a yoga class, but in any experience in life,
Yeah, 100%.
you completely open. Life becomes this like really wondrous experience that is fed by open curiosity, and it informs then a relationship that you can tap into things that you would not ordinarily be able to do. And I think that you know, the practice itself, whether you change, like I have gone into this evolving, some people choose one system and they stay with that. I'm a butterfly. I like to go and try and experience and feel different things and different teachers. And I keep that very much alive in my practice today, that I go into every practice, including every class that I teach, empty. I don't know what I'm going to teach until I have tuned in, arrived, and this co-creation happens. It's really beautiful because the people that are there are informing it, and their bodies are informing it. And instead of being in like a preconceived construct, which I had to be for many years to train, I'm experiencing the creative process of bringing in the universality of the life experience, which is we're all subject to emotions, to pain, to sadness, to anger, to rage, to jealousy, to fear and to terror and to unworthiness, all of us. And our universality, that direct experience, is expressed through a shared space, which the yoga creates like a container for, you know, and it blows me away because no class is ever the same, no experience is ever the same, and it feels like I'm conducting divine musicals because I use music. I love the music. There's spaces for quiet, but I use the music. I feel that the music is evocative, and evocative of emotions is part of the work in Aruna, because Aruna is about emotional release. And when you can open the container, so there's the container of the yoga and the space, but then there's a container of your own body. And within that space, there's safety. There's safety to let the deepest, darkest shame, guilt, rage, list going on and on, come up so that it can be released, because you don't want to keep that stuff down. You do not want to hold that stuff in. When you do, what happens to the body is the body expresses in dysfunction, dis-ease, and chronic illness. And that ability to be able to navigate those emotions in a safe space, to release them with awareness. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to know how to do this. And I'll tell you why soon, but you actually just have to be willing to be open to allow those things to release from the body. And when you let the music evoke those emotions and the narrative evokes those emotions, and that connection, that maybe the word the teacher says or the story the teacher raises for you makes you feel and let go of whatever you might be feeling, you know, the transformation is directly felt. It's immediate. In French, we say bien-être, well-being. The feeling of well-being that arises from the practice is palpable. You can feel it. And once you feel it, you saw the fact that you described how a month later and a year later, alcohol and cigarettes dissolved out of your life were subsequent results, but that present moment, direct, palpable experience of feeling better. And I swear I've never, ever seen a person come out of a yoga class worse off than when they came in. Never. I've been teaching for 25 years, loads of trainings, classes. It is like a magical panacea. It is this, you know, ability to shift, even with minimal input. It doesn't have to be a whole class. It can be just small things.
I have to say that my morning practice, I've kind of created for myself intuitively based on the yoga that I've been doing over the years, but it very much is more of like what does my body need? And I have now just a little routine that I do because it's what I need every morning. But when I don't do it, I feel the difference. Like on the mornings that I don't, you know, I don't have the time, I don't make the time. Most days I really do, even if it's like a 10-minute stretch routine. The shift the like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's so easy to stick to as a morning routine because my body craves it. Like I genuinely cried. I was like, it's easy to prioritize it because I want to do it. It's gonna make me feel so much better. I remember when it really cemented as a morning routine. I was away somewhere and I was struggling a bit with some of the people around me, and I was having really bad dreams, and I really just wanted to leave. But I was like, okay, I'll stick it out. And every morning I did a yoga practice, and going into the yoga practice, I was feeling anxious and down and just really bad. And at the end of the yoga practice, I felt incredible. Like absolutely incredible. And I was just like, this is magic. I'm going to do this every day. And yeah, but now, even if it is just a couple of minutes, just to move and stretch and feel and just connect with me. And I find it just very meditative and very,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just feel a lot better after I do it.
Well, it's a tangible tool. It's a tool that everybody can have access to. That ability to use it to self-regulate, for me, that's more important even than the physical practice, which we need for like strength and flexibility, say.
Yeah.
I want to speak to the listeners who are not disciplined, or like you, who realize that, oh my God, they're not connected to their body, and realize that if I don't practice, I'm not going to feel great. I'm talking to the listeners out there that like feel that they'll never get into that kind of discipline. And for me, I'm actually that kind of person. It's not an easy thing for me to be disciplined because, yeah, and particularly in the practice, like I could, because I have a ballet memory in my body and my body's done so many years of yoga, like I could ride the wave of, skipping and not feeling, because there's like, it's like a built up cumulative well-being in there. And for those people that find it difficult, I want to implore you to realize, just remind you that the practice is not, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't even have to be physical. It just has to be you taking a moment and saying, okay, here I am. I'm giving myself this space. Perfect example for me was yesterday. I was triggered up a storm. I was so triggered. I didn't have one trigger. I had like 10 triggers. And I had to go in and teach my class, which for me, the trigger is the greatest fuel for the motivation and the creative process that's going to come. And the class became really intuitively about reactivity versus response. Reactivity is, boom, you go, you don't think, you just react. And I wanted to react. I was like pissed off. I had to contain it, and I was about to open. And then I said, okay, what do I do to get to that place of response, which is a place where you've processed, where you've sat with, you've sat with it, you've held it, you've released it. Now, I had the beautiful opportunity to do an hour yoga practice that I was teaching, but by the end of it, I felt like I was a new person. I had my breath, I had myself. Every participant came to me and they said, how did you know that was what I needed? It's very often in class you have that, because each person had their trigger and reactivity and opportunity to transform from reactivity to response. And then I was able to come back to myself and deal with all these things that I had to deal with that had an hour before rendered me completely dysregulated. So let's call yoga a practice for self-regulation. Very important aspect of the practice. How to just chill out, get centered, be here, and in a sense, the word self-regulation is one aspect, and another prong is resilience, because resilience, and it's very, very relevant in our post-COVID war, conflict-based reality that we're living in. Resilience is about the ability to endure and to hold the space for the big waves that come through us, and to be able to keep returning back to that anchor, that what I call the self, that part of you that is completely whole, and to keep coming back there, because that place is the place, it's going to sort out your shit, your daily shit, the triggers, the this. It's going to sort out your relational interaction. So when somebody's going to trigger you, you're going to have an amazing, it's like an inbuilt marital counselor, you know, to have yoga as a, especially if you're both practicing, to have yoga as a way to interact, how to engage, how to hold on, you know what, instead of reacting, I'm going to do some practice and then we'll come and meet. Let's do that, you know? So there's not a single area, whether it's self-regulation, resilience, interaction, and then we got to get to healing, because this is a place that yoga is not able to take you to realize the infinite potential of any given moment and of who you truly are. That's the key of what it does. It gets you to actually break those boundaries, to burst those blocks. They're blocks, they're energetical blocks. And I mean, a big part of my training is on the subtle body and how the subtle body correlates to the physical and the emotional, and how that, if you understand that, you're able to shift that very, very simply through all accessible practices. So for me, you know, whatever area you want to put it, if you want to put it to intention, if you want to put it to your healing, if you want to put it to your relationship, yoga will guide you there. It will direct you there. And it will do so not through the mind. It will do so in a holistic, integrated experience of body, mind, spirit, dancing through this particular present moment experience.
I love that. It's so like uncanny to me how I've arrived at similar realizations and similar conclusions, and I preach similar things, and I'm ambassador for similar, you know, like I say to my clients, it's about you having you, you know, like at the end of the day, you're stuck with you forever. Might as well make in here a nice place to be. But you have you always have you. And it's, you know, you're never actually alone in that, like you have you. And it's about giving people back that connection to themselves. I mean, at one point, my Facebook group was called Relationship Rehab. It's about rehabilitating the relationship with yourself. And it's like, you know, bringing it back to like what it kind of was meant to be, you know, always, for the conditioning and the traumas and the shit happened, right? And I just find it so fascinating how, because I speak to so many, you know, wonderful, incredible healers and practitioners and therapists and all these, and we all arrive at very similar places. It's just, what was your gateway drug? Like, what was your way in, you know? And I just love it. I love hearing this, but it's beautiful and fascinating stuff. And I did have a question. Arun, okay, so what does an actual session look like? Is it a yoga session? Is it a yoga class? And then it's poses and positions and breathing and meditate. Like, what does it actually, or is there more stuff? Like, I don't know. What does it look like? Pause. Yes, I am interrupting. I'm sorry. But if you're enjoying this episode, you can prove it by liking and subscribing. And also, please share it with a friend who's into all things healing. It will be a huge, awesome support for us. So yeah, go do that. Okay, cool. Back to the show. Thank you. Love you.
Well, I'm excited to share, because I have just completed developing a new training, which is the crystallized Aruna training, which I call the Aruna Essential Survival Kit. So this has a book, because I'm a person of words and I can't seem to not, you know, crystallize into words. But if I can express it, it's very much born of enduring the war and going through and working directly with people that are directly impacted, as well as people that are not directly impacted. But I came to call it the survival kit, because it's like when you come to an Aruna training, you get a Mary Poppins bag full of tools. Inside of that, whatever you're going to pull out, it can be yoga practices, it can be breathing exercises, it can be meditation techniques, it can be things called mudra, which are like gestures, which are so powerful. These are like amazing. I call them all these different things. I call them yoga pills. No contraindications. You can take them. There are a few that have a few contraindications, like pregnancy and if there are illnesses, but those are not part of the essential training. Those are part of the teacher training. Kabbalistic tools, a practice called TRE, which is trauma releasing exercises, big focus on emotional release. So that's the endless box, because within the bag, it's ever changing. And when you come to a practice, so if you come to the training, you'll get the bag. And it's like the goodie bag that you go home with. You will get those tools integrated into your body. You don't have to remember them. If you're doing the teacher training, obviously I'm a little bit more of a academic, there's a more academic approach, and you need to go through certification. But when you come to a training, you can come empty, you don't even have to have practiced yoga before, and you come out with the consciousness tools, the tools of understanding the fabric of the practice, which I can share if in a moment, and the principles on which Aruna is based. You will learn how to move the body through the language of yoga. But mostly, I remind people, I kind of remind people that I'm not teaching them anything they don't know. I'm reminding them of innate and primal body wisdom and knowledge, which is to move, which is to be really intuitive and to dance and to cultivate the fluidity of the body. So if you come to a yoga class, we are going to move. And we're going to, for that time frame, we're going to do anything from breathing, mudra, meditation, physical practices, sometimes emotional practices where people release and lots of emotions can arise, and that's just beautiful and welcome. Sometimes there might be TRE, the trauma releasing exercises, which is an added adjunct modality to Aruna Yoga, or it can be lying on your back. In my private sessions, sometimes I do just emotional work, and this work is derived from another system called The Journey by Brandon Bays. So I work with releasing the emotional blocks for people, and that can be a non-moving and just a talking session, and it is still yoga. So if it's a one-on-one, it's anything. If it's a class, it's movement. And if it's a training, it's a change of your iOS. It's like we reboot the operating system, free of old constructs, limiting beliefs, constructs of identity that have been socially conditioned, societally imposed, religiously determined, and we strip it all. But there's one thing, and I want to share this because it's at the heart of Aruna. I call it canonizing mundanity. And what does that mean? It's two big words. You know, I like my words. Canonize is to make something holy. And mundanity is the routine of the day, you know, the routine of life that I know for myself I spent years trying to avoid until I understood that the routine itself, being here with the dirty diapers, the homework. I've now got my baby going through puberty, you know what I'm saying? So dealing with the reality of getting meals cooked, homework done, running my business, taking care of myself, being the super mom, super woman, also my mom, I take care of my mom, you know, so I've got it all. I've got this amazing opportunity, this incredible privilege to really practice what is essentially Aruna for me, which is recognizing how holy the shit is. I've even got a chapter in my new book called Reverence to Bodily Function, where we recognize that our pee and our shit and our blood and our vomit is the most holy experience of the body's expression of elimination. If we do not have that, we're literally full of shit. So the key to understanding that everything is really sacred, this body is sacred, the experience of the body is sacred, the experience of the human emotions are sacred, the waiting in the queue at the grocery shop can be a disaster, or it can be recognized as an opportunity to practice awareness. And then you don't resist life. You're like, okay, here is my teacher for now. Let me use this. And so to canonize mundanity is to recognize the holiness that is here. And I call it divine fluidity as well, because it's part of my story. I haven't fully written this story yet because it's kind of coming out the closet a little bit on what I would call my polydeified relationship to divinity, to God. You know, I was brought up as a Jew, and it didn't really work for me. I found it like way too patriarchal and limiting, and I couldn't find my space there. So I went in the yogic and I started looking in Hinduism, and I started going and, spent 10 years in India with my kids in tow. And then when I arrived in Israel, where I've been living for the last 14 years, Christianity, well, not Christianity, not the religion, but the relationship that is expressed through Jesus. You said the word finding Jesus. That expression showed up for me. And eventually, after seeing that God is God takes whatever form. When I say God, I don't mean God. I mean whatever you find divine. God takes
Source, universe, higher force,
nature, love. You can call
nature.
it what you want. I like to call it love for people that can't relate, but I give a space for people to be very fluid with their relationship to divinity. And that sacred fluidity is important, because if you don't have something that is sacred to you, and it's got nothing to do with God. In my book, I say GOD, generator, organizer, destroyer. It doesn't have to be a form. But whatever form you believe in and feel connected to is how divinity will show up for you. So why not just be open to all forms? And today I call God creativity, and creativity is the language that not only the body experiences, but that our unfolding life narrative can take. It's like we're creating our own narrative all the time by what we're thinking, speaking, believing. So why not create something that is sacred and holy to you? I'm like giving leaks about what's coming in the new book, but I have to share it because it's something that I've called in the book, The Fluidity of Form. There's a big chapter called The Scripture of Sensation. Because sensation is the language that the body expresses, whether it's physical or emotional, it doesn't matter. So the scripture of sensation, for those of you that speak Hebrew, is, I call it Shir HaShririm. Shir HaShririm is a sacred prayer written by Solomon, expressing the devotional relationship between God. God is the beloved. Shir HaShririm means song of the muscles. So it's about your relationship, the scripture of sensation. So what does that mean? That means that understanding that what goes on inside of your body, expressed through the sensations when you're open and curious, is seen through the funnel of sacredness, canonizing mundanity, recognizing that this is actually, even if it's not what you want, wow, it's an amazing, amazing divine opportunity to open and experience and to transform. And each week, like to reflect on, okay, what's come up for me this week? So again, I call it, for myself personally, I call it my Parashata Shavua, my weekly portion, because I don't go to the books. I don't go to the sources. I go to my body. That's my scripture. And I experience this internal narrative between sensation and self, because that's like the interplay. It's the dance. This is here. This is felt. Giving space to that, allowing that, and then seeing the core and quintessential nature of all sensation is that it's impermanent. Every sensation will arise, it will stay for a while, and then it will pass away. We get so like hooked into, stuck in avoiding negative sensations. I'm calling them negative, things that we have aversions to, and running toward the things that we desire. And the relationship of the scripture of sensation is the cultivation of equanimity, to be equanimous, which means not to react, not to yearn for the desiring ones, and not to run from the aversions. And that equanimity is what kind of keeps us still and chilled at the end of the day. Yeah.
You're so clever. You're so clever and so wise. Oh man, I'm loving this. And I really get why you train as well, like why you're training teachers. I think that people that are very into this and have some kind of foundational understanding of self and connection to self and the spirituality and trying to get centered and trying to connect, and the door's already been opened in a way, they're already in it. I can so see why you'd be amazing to work with and learn from. Like, okay, Hmm.
Thank
I
you.
want to come to your sessions.
I would
I
love.
want to read your
I'll come.
books.
I'll come to you if need be.
Yeah, you come to me.
Invite me. I'll
We're
be there
gonna
in
do
a
retreats
heartbeat.
here in my forest.
Brilliant. I'd love that. I'd
Uh,
love.
but I love this. Do you know what as well? I was thinking about this. It's like I find it also kind of serendipitous in a way, like the synchronicities, because the minute you were talking about triggers, and triggers isn't something that comes up on my episodes like regularly. You very specifically as well were mentioning about trigger, but it's a theme for me this week with my clients. I found myself saying again and again when they
Mm,
said like something's coming up, it's going to be really triggering. Do you have a tip or whatever? And I say, instead of emotionally reacting, find a way to pause, to kind of walk away, do some breathing, or and think how you can intentionally respond
mm,
after you've processed it a bit. And then so like the fact that you bringing up the triggers piece and stuff like that is just like it feels like you see, there's like a nod from the powers that be that it was meant to be like this is it just feels very aligned. Everything that you're saying, I'm like, yep, 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 I get it.
I'm jumping in just to say that
Yeah.
the word aligned, the moment you're connected to yourself, everything is aligned. It's already aligned, even when you're not connected. The difference is that the connection to the self creates the awareness for you to recognize how aligned you are. And if there's a big friction, it's part of your alignment. It's an opportunity because there's stuff that needs to be purified and released.
But this, as a former skeptic, okay, and I have a feeling that some of the listeners might be skeptics, they'll be like, what are they talking about, But
Mm,
as a former skeptic, it blows my mind. I mean, I consider myself a newbie in the spiritual kind of space,
mm,
um, where I had what I call a rebirth about in 2016.
mm,
Um, and and it's just it was no, actually, it wasn't. My rebirth was 2016, but I actually really started seeing and feeling the synchronicities, like actually noticing them. I think because we're always manifesting and we're always doing, like we're manifesting just life and we're co-creating all the time, right? But to actually become more aware of it, right?
mm,
I think has been since I started my business. It was 5 years ago. And it has been just like every time I get a synchronicity and I see and I experience something and I'm like, it's just
yeah.
shit. It keeps kind of really taking me by surprise still. I'm half starting to expect things and I test it out all the time. But
Mm.
I just really love when things just feel so aligned and things fall into place and I notice them and I see it and I'm just like, oh man, this is amazing.
It is amazing. And it's an
So fun.
invitation for surrender. There's something that like we're inbuilt into the human function is resistance. It's
Mhm.
it's brilliantly
Oh,
expressed
word
in
that came up this week for me, resist.
the well, my Hebrew is very like so, but I feel Hebrew. Okay, it's a
Hmm.
vibrational language, and I feel senses, and
A
my
very special language. Yeah.
it's a very special language. And the word for resistance is hit nag dut. So
Hmm.
it's a reflexive word, which means neged means against oneself. That's what resistance is. You're going
Mm.
against oneself. So in the Aruna training and the basis of it it gives you the framework within which to experience a new lens of reality, because your reality is experienced directly through the filter of your perception of that moment. So if you are feeling wow, everything's going to feel wow. If you're feeling blah, everything's going to feel blah. So the moment you get ways to kind of take the blinkers and take them off, actually, be able to see omnisciently, to be able to experience all around you, like a mother does, where we have eyes on the back of our head, here you see, it's not a seeing, it's a beingness that is absolutely infinite.
That was the other thing that I wanted to say. You just reminded me. Sorry to cut you off, but it was
No, no,
when
it's
you were
good.
saying about I say this all the time as well, is that triggers are teachers
Yeah,
and challenges are opportunities. And it has been a game changer for me to
yeah.
view my challenges as opportunities. And I mean, it is from the
Mm,
small
mm,
day-to-day things, where you have an argument or you get triggered and you're like, so what am I being invited to learn from this or to grow through, how can I grow through this? Like, what is it? And I mean,
Mm.
I say in my marriage, I get so triggered, but I love, I invite the triggers and I invite the challenges because I know I'm going to grow. I'm learning as I'm going through it. And it's like, it was meant to be. I was meant to be very triggered by my husband because I'm growing so much from it. You know, I'm learning so much from it. And so I have a completely different
Mm.
approach and view of challenges. I mean,
Mm.
sometimes I'm like, I've had enough big challenges. Like, I don't want any big ones. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
I welcome them, but it's all
Yeah.
good. Don't send me anymore, whoever. But no, but I mean, we're inevitably gonna get like curveballs thrown at us all the time. But I literally, I mean, like last year I had a miscarriage, but I had such a spiritual up level through it. And I was like, holy shit. And then had I actually had that
Mm.
pregnancy, like kept like had it, survived, then I would have been about 7, 8 months pregnant when my mom had her stroke, and I wouldn't have been able to be by her bedside in the hospital for 6 weeks and on planes and and I was just like, oh wow, okay. So there's like I can see the reasons, I can see the lessons, and then even through my mom's stroke, like there was so many growth moments and so much, like again an up level and things that identity shifts going through it and like dynamics shifts, and I was just like, oh shit, like there's I just yeah it's
My,
just so
my, my,
crazy.
my mom-in-law taught me this 25 years ago. She called them challenges the yay moment. This is where I've got to grow. If you are triggered, that is the deconstruct of your comfort zone, which is really just a very transient moment experience. And this is what we're here for. We are here to evolve. We're not here to just sit back and chill. And maybe I don't want to say that's a judgment, but for me, the purpose of being in this body comes down to realizing the fullest potential that I can in every single way. And Aruna is based on 3 tenets. It's like love, that's the essence of who I am. Who am I really? Essence, I'm love. That love is the nature of our essence, that we truly are, the nature of the self. Truth, which is what is here. The truth will always, if you feel into your body, that's the truth, not what your head tells you. You've got to learn to trust the body because the body is the barometer of truth. And then the third tenet, what is the purpose that we're here, is how can I serve? So it's truth, love, and service.
I've got goosebumps. Do you know what my 5 core values are, Nikki?
Yeah.
Love, health, growth, integrity, and meaningful work. And those are like the values that I built my work around, and those are my core values.
Well, because those are essential. It comes to like, and the stripping down to the essentials of what is the essence. What is it? It is living as the love that you are in truth and in service. It's so easy. It's so simple. And you don't have to be anything big. It's not like you need to be Nelson Mandela or realize a huge foundation in order to be effective. If you bring that consciousness just to your like day-to-day interactions. I can give a silly example. I was at a shop yesterday. She did a terrible job and she was basically feeling like really bad about herself. And I couldn't deny the fact that she had done a really terrible job. But I was able to just say to her, you know what? Come on, this is not of importance. And I actually said, let me give you a hug, and she was happy to have that hug. And even that is meaningful service, to transform for another person a moment which could have impacted her really badly and made her feel very unworthy. And to just say, this is such an innocuous thing. This is such rubbish. Let it go. Here, feel this. And
You know what? Even
right.
meaningful work, working on healing yourself and connecting to yourself, because then you show up differently in the world, right? And even like tying it back to the triggers piece, like my husband triggered me the other day, like upset me, whatever, and I felt it coming, and I know, I'm aware that my trigger is my trigger, and he didn't intend to trigger me or upset me, and I was aware of that because I'm doing the work always, and then he came, he was like, what happened? And I'm crying, and I'm like, it triggered me, it's like, it's just and I could have, in the past, I would have, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that would have been an argument, that would have escalated into like, who the fuck, like I would have reacted, but in this one, I was just like very aware that that was a trigger. That was something that I get to, work on and process and heal and communicate that as well, And he was, instead of then having to be defensive,
Yeah.
you know, because I'm attacking him, I wasn't. And then he could actually hear me. And then he was like, I'm so sorry. Like, and he genuinely apologized. He did not mean to upset me in that way, you know? And it's just and it was a hard trigger. And I had to intentionally really respond in that way as opposed to react. But it came kind of naturally because of the work that I've been doing. But that then serves, right? That serves him. That didn't ruin his day now. We didn't have a big fight. Whoever else I'm going to see later on,
It's
or
your
my kids, you
family.
know, that we're going to be upset with each other or whatever, you know. Um,
Mm,
just like as a small example, you know, like meaningful work is also working on yourself.
absolutely. And it's like the oxygen mask thing. You've got to put on your own
Yes.
oxygen mask to be a decent human being to other people.
I've used
And
that this week as well.
yeah, why are we not surprised?
Yes, yes, it's a
Yeah, it is.
regular one.
It's an important one to understand that
It
to
is
take care of yourself and to give to yourself
not
is not an act
selfish,
of selfish. It's actually the way you can
selfless.
selfless. It's so beautifully ironic, you know. It's the way you can best serve your family, your community, and the world.
If you're burnt out, if you are irritable, if you are angry, if you're resentful, if you're all of these things, you're not going to show up as your best self. And I really do believe that everyone has a gift. Everyone has a purpose and a gift, and we're so conditioned to disconnect from ourselves and from our intuition and from our bodies and from all of it, right? That's why there's so much disease and so much, you know,
Mm.
everything. But which is actually we didn't talk yet about healing,
I
right?
know that I
We
just
need to
realized
get
I
to that
should
one
have
too.
said that.
But I do really believe that, well, as a mother as well, that was my biggest dream, my lifelong dream was to become a mother. And when I started self-healing and like choosing myself and connecting to myself and you know yoga, then sobriety, and then academia, and then love, and then the babies came. Like it was like a domino effect. The minute I showed up for me and I
Mm.
chose me and I chose life and I chose connection and I chose figuring my shit out and healing my shit, literally like dominoes, everything just started falling into place. Everything that I want, like manifesting alignment, like it was insane. It was just okay.
Then the process of emptying oneself by being aware and by doing these different tools of work is the part where you can become the channel and
Yeah.
become much more clearly creative, whether it's becoming a mother or a parent or writing a book or painting a painting. It doesn't really matter what the process itself is the key, not the
Yeah.
results. And that's also like we can just direct a little bit to the healing, because I think
Yes.
to leave the listeners without understanding the power of this to heal, it would be irresponsible on both.
Beyond the emotional and the mental kind
Yeah,
of aspect of healing, but like actual physical healing too. Yeah.
physical healing, and actually the physical healing is
It's
directly
connected. Yes.
linked to that,
Of course.
also the mental. And I'm saying that for the listeners who may not actually realize that correlation, because
Yeah.
the physical and subtle bodies are identical. The they're actually, we're made up of 5 layers. In yoga, they're called sheaths, or in the Sanskrit is koshas. So we've got the physical body, which is the gross body. We've got the breath body, which is a whole big podcast just on the breath. That's like the breath is the
And
gateway.
we may do that.
And we
Okay.
may, because like it's a trip, it really is. It's a trip to the soul, from the nishima to the nishama. It's really that.
Hmm.
Then you've got the third layer, which is called the mind body. Manomaya kosha, if you're interested in the Sanskrit. I love the languages. So this mind body is, remember it, because I'm going to come back to it in a second. The fourth is the wisdom body, and the fifth is the bliss body.
Hmm.
Now, the illness doesn't start in the body, doesn't start in the gross body. It actually starts in the manomaya kosha level, the mind body. The mind body is connected to the emotions.
Then it manifests when that doesn't get
So,
attended to.
and think about it. Something happens, you're triggered, your reaction, let's say it's anger. What happens to your breath? You know, you might be doing that, or it might be, excuse me for scaring the viewers out there, but our body, if we are not aware of that reaction, the breath channels the emotion into the body, and then the body is the last level that it actually gets to. So the emotional mind body is actually the level where we start getting sick. And when we address that, like Aruna Yoga focuses on doing, it's addressing the emotions, releasing the emotions. It's working the subtle body. It's working on the level of the energy vortices and creating a free flow of energy to move through the body through very simple exercises that also are always connected to the breath. So the breath becomes the thread that embroiders and yokes together the mental and the physical. And then you can control the transmission from the mental, emotional down to the physical. And I've seen it happen. Again, I could do a full podcast and would love to on my stories of how I've witnessed people heal. And I'm talking
I
about.
just cry, by the way. As emotional release, I'm a cry.
Yes.
Like, it's just it's so efficient and it's so effective.
The
I
best.
cry and then I feel so much better. And but like good, bad, what, like any kind of overwhelming emotion that I'm feeling, I'll cry it out.
Now, that's amazing. And you're lucky because some people cannot feel. They
Yeah.
have been desensitized from feeling. Their trauma and life experience have shut them down. They might not feel safe to feel. I was actually one of those. I was armored when I came into yoga. It took me a long time to de-armor, to be able to feel. I couldn't even feel my emotions in the beginning. I was not
Me
able.
too.
So the relationship of de-armoring the body happens naturally in the yoga when you're moving and opening. And I remember my very first class. I was teaching. One of the mums at school said to me, I hear, I was the only yoga teacher in town at that point, practically. There was maybe one or two others. She said, in Belgium, she said, can I come to your yoga? I said, come on, first class is tomorrow. And we started, inhaling up, exhaling open. And this woman started to just sob. And she was not just like, it wasn't crying, she was, it was heaving, sobbing. And I'm like brand new teacher here, fledgling teacher. And it just came so naturally and intuitively to hold the space for that. And my classes, there are very often a lot of tears, I have to say. And that release.
It makes sense. Emotional release.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But it sometimes takes a while. So if you don't feel it in the beginning, that's okay. For me, I had to process for quite some time before I was able to feel and allow. And the body exercises really helps us to do that, by doing that. When it comes to healing, when we release on that level, we are circumventing the process of the emotion getting stuck in the body. And that is why there is such a profound relationship to physical healing through yoga and the emotional work. And my sister is a perfect example of, again, I don't want to start with the stories of family tragedy and come to end with stories of family tragedy, but she was diagnosed with lung cancer that had metastasized to the brain. And at the time I was learning the journey work, she did the journey, and within 6 weeks, 6 sessions of emotional release process work, the cancer had completely and utterly disappeared when she had been given a few weeks left to live. There was no plan B. I said, this is plan B. And so I got on to this. So that was in 2013. I've been doing this, working privately with people that are going through cancer, that are going through autoimmune disease, that have multiple sclerosis. I work with groups here, with NGOs in Israel, developing programs for them to not just deal and manage and cope with the illness and the pain associated. A lot of it is about pain management, but with some grace, actually affecting
The cells.
and monumental healing. I've seen over and over how tumors disappear like this.
I watched Heal like way back and I was like, crazy.
Yeah.
The documentary.
That's
So
my
good.
life. That's my life. That's what I get to do here in my gorgeous,
Amazing.
beautiful sanctuary in Israel. I'm based in Herzliya, and I've got a space which is devoted to healing. Healing is a huge part of what I do. It's personally when I'm working with people and also what I teach others to do. And unlike you, who kind of your healing journey started in 2016, for me, I came into kind of a very interesting family because my great-grandfather in the shtetls of Lithuania was the hands-on healer of the shtetls, and people would come from all over and he would put his hands on them. And my auntie taught me this technique when I was a little girl, and my grandmother, who had metastasized breast cancer, also given a few months left to live, was healed through this energy work. So I kind of grew up and I did my first psychic kind of training, my spiritual training when I was 16 already. But I'd been exposed to this from the beginning. So it was a language that I knew and was taught through the lineage of my family, but it was also had to be very hush. My mom and family were like, people are not going to get this. And even today, I have to be very cognizant of the transmission based on the audience that I'm working with, of how to allow a person to connect to that intrinsic ability. And maybe I can explain it like this. The heart is like the center, this area here. The chest is like the center of the self. It's the confluence of the upper triangles and the lower triangles, and it's like the relationship to the heavens and the earth. It really is the meeting point here. Look what emanates out of there, the arms. So when you bring awareness into the heart and you send it out to your hands, it's like it's an energy. And if energy doesn't mean anything to you, just think about it as expressing love, because it doesn't have to be woohoo and, inaccessible. But it's a way of when you go back to your heart and back to that wholeness of yourself, you can heal the body and you can become, an instrument of that healing for others. And it's so
I
easy.
have an episode where we do energy, an energy
Yeah,
ball, and you feel, and it's like I can feel it.
I
Like
know, it's
this is
crazy.
intense. No, I love this. Okay.
Hmm.
Ah, I could
Hmm.
go on and on and on with you. We could talk forever, and we probably will talk some
We'll
more.
have our
But
time.
I do just want to say, to wrap it up, I usually ask my guests to share a exercise or a practice or a top tip. I mean, there's so much information here anyway, but is there something that you would like to share, that we can take away right now?
Yes, absolutely. So there is the alphabet of the body, which is the asanas or yoga poses. I'm not going to tell you those. You want to learn those, you need to go to a class or do a training. It's like learning any language. You start with the aleph, you start with the A, and you got to work your way through the body. What I'm going to remind you of is what your body already knows. I call these different practices for catharsis, and it's catharsis because when you connect to your intuitive movement, it is a really profound way of creating more fluidity in the body. In French, the word articulation means joint, a
Okay.
joint. That's what it sounds so delightful because it's French, but it actually is the word in English, articulation.
Articulation.
Okay, so when you create fluidity in the body and you letting your body move intuitively, you don't have to learn that. You just put in some music and you create at every joint level fluidity so that the body's expression can be more fluent and fluid. And that alone, it can be soft, it can be dancing. We're all dancers innately. Like kids, you put on music, they go for it. It can be like a process where you shake. I do a lot of shaking work as well, which is another practice of catharsis. So whether it's fluidity, which is very resonant, or a shake, which can be more dissonant, you have the power and ability to release things like this in a 2-minute session without ever going to a yoga class, having been to one, or even going to one in the future. So connect to your body, connect to creating that free-flowing fluency of movement and fluidity of the form. And hopefully with that, you'll move from this construct of the form into the infinite of the formless. And then you're home, which you already
I
are.
love that. Thank you. I mean, is that why I have a client and I told her homework intuitively based on finding what works for you was to just dance, like to do put on a song every day, just even if it's 3 minutes, just one song, but dance, move your body and just get, because at first I remember when I was doing that, at first you're very self-conscious and you're like, oh, this feels like there's no one here looking at me, okay,
Yeah.
but still I'm judging myself, like this feels strange because we don't allow ourselves to. Ever since childhood, I guess it gets conditioned out of us, right? For most of us anyway. um And I wrote a poem about this one woman I saw at a festival, and she was just so free. She had
Amazing.
her feet in the sand, and her whole top half, like the whole torso, was just windmilling. And she was just going at it. And me and my friends, we just stood there like staring at her in awe at
Mm.
like wow. Like it was just so inspiring, and I'll never forget her. I wrote a poem about her.
I'm just jumping in.
Yeah.
That celebrated my 50th. I did an ecstatic dance party. And in ecstatic dance, there's no stimulants. So you don't drink and you don't have any. The idea is to be completely pure in your body
Okay.
and to dance for 5-6 hours. That was how I celebrated my transition into the 50s. And it
Can I
was
come to the next party?
the next party, 12th of June. I know you'll be having a baby, but
I'll be having a baby the day before.
are you serious? Well, I'm having my baby, which is I'm having my first art exhibition. I didn't even get to that, but COVID opened me. I'd never been an artist before, and now I'm having my
Oh
first
yeah, your art's
exhibition.
amazing.
Thank you. So I'm gonna
So good.
do a bit of a experiential, interactive art exhibition, and I promise you I'll have one again that you will come to for sure.
Yay. No,
Yay.
your art is really incredible. Go check out Nikki's art.
Yours is pretty impressive too.
Thank you,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Amazing. Okay, we're going to end it here. Otherwise,
Yeah,
we'll never end. So you're
yeah.
amazing, Nikki. Thank you for sharing your
Um,
wisdom and your time with us today as well. A big thank you to everybody listening in. I hope you found our conversation as inspiring and enlightening as I did. You can find Nikki's links in the description wherever it is here. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps me reach more listeners, hopefully make a bigger impact. We'd also love to hear from you, Nikki, and I would love to hear what was your biggest takeaway from today. And yeah, stay curious, stay informed, and stay tuned for more episodes coming your way. Nikki, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're amazing. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Emily. You too. It was amazing.
And that's a wrap. So yay, thank you for listening all the way through. I'm going to assume that means you liked it. So if you haven't yet, please go and hit the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget to share this with someone who is into healing. And come and say hi on our socials. We really, really would love to connect with you. The link's in the description below. And I'll catch you on the next episode.